Wiggle it just a little bit. Hi, you all. This is E-Man Booze, and I'm happier than a lark the day after hunting season. You see, Wigle Whiskey just landed here in Maryland, and we're like the second state outside of Pennsylvania to have those spirits distributed here. So I'm real excited about that, because I love me some Wigle Whiskey products. And a couple of weeks and months ago, I reviewed all these spirits here, the Genevas and the aged wheat and rye whiskeys. And today what we're going to do, we're going to get into this here Landlocked Spirit, which is kind of like a spice rum. It's not actually classified as a rum, but it is kind of like that. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to get into these here bitters that Wigle makes. And they just doing so much cool stuff now. And they're coming down on Thursday of this week, and we're going to meet, and I think they might have some other samples of stuff that's kind of cutting edge too. So I'm all excited about Wigle. That's why I keep wiggling in the chair and everything. Alright, now, the Landlocked Spirit. What is it? Well, it is like a rum, like we said before. And the way it's made is they take buckwheat honey, and they create a mead out of it. So they ferment it with a little bit of water and yeast, and then it ferments into basically like a honey wine or a mead, and then they distill it twice in a copper pot still. There's also some natural flavorings that are added to it, like cassia, cinnamon, orange peel, and cocoa, and that's what gives it the spiced, kind of like spice rum character to it. So we're going to get some in the glass here, and while we're doing that, we're going to also talk about the bitters too. Now Wigle does so much cool crazy stuff too, but these bitters here, they're making these for the cocktail market. And when they make these things here, they take their white whiskey, the clear white whiskey, and they infuse botanicals in them. Like, for example, with this one here, this is the bitter bitters. This is the basic aromatic bitters that's infused with cardamom, gentian root, star anise, mace, and orris root. And then we got this here Rosemary lavender bitters, which is infused with angelica root, rosemary, lemon peel, and lavender. And these are 100 milliliter bottles. Something like, what is the proof on these things here? It's like 80. It's like 80 proof. They're like 40% alcohol by volume. But what these are used for, judiciously, you pour a couple shakes into whatever cocktail you're trying to make to enhance the flavor profile. So let's get into the Landlocked Spirit, the spice Landlocked Spirit, because they also make a clear one as well. But the spice one, let's nose it up and see what it's all about. I tell you, smell a lot like spice cake to me. You're definitely picking up the cinnamon. You're getting a nice little note from the orange in here, and there is a very good earthiness about it, and that comes from buckwheat honey, because buckwheat honey, of all the honeys, might be one of the most earthiest, you know, really kind of like just earthy. This is what it is. It's a very earthy honey. It's a delicious honey, but it's got a lot of earthy qualities to it that are good for making spirits, and also good for making cocktails. Now, nosing this thing up here with the cinnamon jumping out at me, you know, it's got so much going on in the nose here. It's not just the cinnamon, a little bit of the orange peel like we talked about, but you got the honey tones coming out in here, and you're picking up something almost like allspice, maybe a little bit of a nutmeggy tone. Even though they ain't in there, they smelling on the nose. Color's nice dark amber color. Beautiful on the nose. Let's give it a taste, see what we're picking up on the palate. It's spicy. Got a back note of pepper. Spicy. Spicy in a good way. It's a cinnamon, I'm sure. It's dry. It's on the drier side too. It's not super sweet or anything. But the earthiness of the honey is fantastic. It's just all that neat terroir, you know, that's in there from the honey. The bee's been doing a good job making the honey for this one. And it reminds me kind of a spice rum, but it is different than that. It's just, it's like its own spirit. The spice is nice. That orange peel definitely adds a brightness to it. And the background of the cocoa in the unsweetened form can also be kind of earthy. That's in there too. And that's making the spirit shine really nicely. Now, I was thinking about this when I tasted it the other day, that we can make a really good cocktail with this. So I think what we're going to do, if I can find me a shot glass over here somewhere. Where's this one from? Cherry Stone. Man, this got so much dust in it. I better get this cleaned up here a little bit. I ain't used this shot glass in 20 years. Holy smoke. Alright, Cherry Stone, some kind of place in southern Maryland. It's kind of like a camping resort or something. Alright, so here's what I was thinking. We take the Landlocked Spiced Spirit and we stick in about a shot and a half of it into a glass with some nice ice in it. Alright. And we get ourselves some ginger beer, because I know y'all have had probably a dark and stormy, and that's usually used with a different kind of rum. Goslings rum to be exact, but I got the Goslings ginger beer here. Let's get some of that in here. Where my stir at? Oh, here go one over here. Let's get this one here. Let's stir this up. But I got an idea after we go and taste this here. I think this is going to be magnificent. It ain't as dark as your standard dark and stormy. It ain't a dark and stormy, it's a light and stormy. Let's give it a shot. I bet this is going to be delicious. Oh yes. All the earthiness and the spicy tones in here and the beautiful notes of the buckwheat honey marry excellently with this here ginger beer. I gotta get me another sip. Now what I was thinking might highlight this and take this up to the next level here is to add some of these rosemary lavender bitters. I'm gonna tip a couple in here. Let's get a couple shakes in here. Maybe about 8-9 shakes, 8-9 drops or so. Let's put this back up here so y'all can see it. Let's give this a shot. Here's what I like about this. The rosemary, the herbaceousness of the rosemary and the floral tones of the lavender really accentuate all the spices and the orange peel and the cocoa and the ginger beer, and it all works. This is an excellent cocktail right here. But I want to try these other bitters here. Now these bitters, I'm going to tell you something about these. These were created by consulting with the cocktail gurus up in the Pittsburgh area, and one of which kept sending the Wigle distiller, in particular Alex, it kept sending him back to the drawing board because he would make these aromatic bitters, and you know, these are kind of like your standard Angostura bitters or something, but your basic aromatic bitters. And he would make them and go to the cocktail people and they said, it ain't bitter enough. So he'd make them again. He'd come back, it ain't bitter enough. He done tried 3, 4, 5 times. Eventually he got them so bitter, they said, if our face ain't going like this, when we drinking it, it ain't bitter enough. So that's how these bitters are. And when you have a cocktail that's got a lot of sweetness to it, maybe a lot of citrus notes, sometime to incorporate some really bitter bitters in it just creates this magnificent concoction. What I'm going to do, I'm going to throw a bit or two, just a couple of drops in here in the base Landlocked Spirit, so I can get a little bit of a profile on these things here and see what they do into the base spirit. You can pick them up in the nose a little bit. But that cinnamon and cassia, still very forward. Oh yeah, that bitted it up. I wonder what happened if we do some of this. Oh, spilling it. Let me try some of this right here. Heck, that works too. These bitters here are magnificent. These are real craft cocktail bitters, unlike most of the commercial stuff you get on the market. So look, Wigle doing everything right. They growing. They just opened up a second barrel house. Got the building painted. Go on the website and check them out, wigglewhiskey.com. Check me out. I'm E-Man Booze. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I write the Main Street Distillery Distillery of the Month column for MainStreetDistilleries.com. And we did feature Wigle Whiskey a couple months ago as a Distillery of the Month. So check that out when you get a chance. Don't forget, if you're in Maryland or Pennsylvania, or if you're in D.C., they will ship you product. Wigle Whiskey, check them out. They make some just off-the-hook spirits. I love it. Bye, you all!